So Korach starts his trouble. I just want to show you in Pirkei Avos. There's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says it's in the fifth chapter of Pirkei Avos. In the Siddur, it's chapter 5, Mishnah 20. The Siddur, the way the Mishnahs are broken up in the Siddur, I don't know why, but the way they're broken up in the Siddur is slightly different than the way they're broken up in the actual Mishnayos. But the Siddur says like this: Kol machlokes she l'shem shemayim. Any dispute which is l'shem shemayim, sofa liskayim, it's going to endure. Different opinions what endure means. Endure means that whatever the machlokes is about, there's going to be a beneficial outcome. V'she'ena l'shem shemayim, ain't sofa liskayim. If it's not l'shem shemayim, you're making machlokes, which is not, it's for personal reasons. Ain't no sofa, it's not going to have a beneficial outcome. What's an example of machlokas shem shemayim? So machlokas Hillel v'Shamai. Hillel and Shammai in the Gemara, they dispute all the time. They dispute all the time. Hillel and Shammai always have disputes. And, they paskin like Hillel, sometimes they paskin like Shammai. And the people from Beis Hillel honored, respected Beis Shammai very much. They respected Beis Hillel. It means it's not a machlokas Hashem Shemayim means that there's nothing personal. It's not personal. We're fighting over an issue, and if it gets personal, that means it's not L'Shem Shemayim. Hillel and Shammai, they even married from each other. They made shidduchim with each other. They disagreed on many halachas, but that's because they understood they're learning Torah, and they're coming to a certain halachic conclusion, and they respect their opinion. Then we're going to paskin the halacha. V'she'ena L'Shem Shemayim. What's an example of a machlokas that is not L'Shem Shemayim? Says the Mishnah. Zo machlokes Korach v'chol adosa. Korach and his congregation. Korach and his people. That's a machlokes L'Shem Shemayim. In the end, is they don't have such a great result. Now, there are two questions over here. Question number one is just the wording of the Mishnah. When it comes from a machlokes L'Shem Shemayim, so it gives you the two sides. Who was fighting? Who was arguing? Who was disputing? It was Hillel and Shammai. When it tells you about a machlokes L'Shem Shemayim, so what should it really say? Korach and who? Moshe. It doesn't say Korach, but it says Korach and his people. So one of the answers is you're right, because Moshe was L'Shem Shemayim. Korach wasn't L'Shem Shemayim. It's like the guy says, listen, let's take it outside. You're having an argument, so hey, let's take it outside. And if I'm not there, start without me. Korach was not L'Shem Shemayim. Moshe was L'Shem Shemayim. So Moshe is not mentioned in an example of a machlokas that's not L'Shem Shemayim, number one. Number two, there are commentaries that say, well, even Korach and his people probably had a fight. I don't know if you know anything about Israeli politics, where they put together a political party. I'll be number one on the list. I'll be number one on. So you can imagine that Korach and his people, there's also some of this going on. Okay. But why does the Mishnah need to tell us that? I mean, if you read the Chumash, the most obvious machlokas shalol L'Shem Shemayim that you get in Chumash is Korach and his people. That's how much more obvious could it get? The answer is what we said yesterday. What did Korach tempt Moshe Rabbeinu with? A talus that's kulat cheles. Ooh, a mitzvah, right? A house full of svarim. Does it need a mezuzah? Ooh, is this guy from? Oh, is this guy from? So the Mishnah at Pirkei Avos wants you to know, don't be deceived. With Korach, with all of his frum talk and the thumb twisting up in the air, don't think for a minute that Korach was L'Shem Shemayim. None of it was L'Shem. He used the talus, he used the tefillah, he used the tzitzis. None of it had nothing to do with L'Shem Shemayim. Korach is completely self-motivated over here. He's a self-interest over here. Now, if you take a look in Pasuk Hey, so this is where Moshe says to Korach, they go through this debate over here. And Korach is starting. So Moshe says, hey, listen, you guys got plenty of honor. You're from the house of Levi. And now you're starting up. And then he says to them in Pasuk Tes. Take a look, Pasuk Tes. Hama'at mikem. It's page 822, 6 lines from the top. Hama'at mikem. Is it not enough? Ki hivdil elokei Yisrael eschem me'adas Yisrael. L'hakriv eschem me'lov. It's not enough that God has drawn you. You're the tribe of Levi. You guys have a position of honor. La'avodas avodas mishkan Hashem. You serve in the Mishkan. V'lamod lifnei ha'ida l'sharsam, and you serve the congregation as that you're the leaders. So what Moshe is really saying to Korach is, hey, listen, you're telling me that all these appointments that I made, I appointed Aaron and I took honor for myself, this didn't come from Hashem. I understand. So where were you when I appointed you guys as the Levi? That you didn't have a problem with. It's nothing like a self-contradiction. When I appointed you guys as the Leviim, and I said, okay, you're going to be the Levi, and you're going to be in a position of honor, then Korach was, oh, we're good. Nobody said anything. All of a sudden, now you got something get triggered you off. Now all of a sudden, if it didn't come from Hashem, then your appointment didn't come from Hashem either. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu shows you, what do you do when there's a fight? What do you do when there's an argument? What do you do when there's a confrontation? How do you handle a confrontation? Most people, this is human nature. It's not our fault. We're human, some of us. And human nature is that when there's a fight, if somebody says something aggressive to you, how do you regret? How do most people respond? Aggressive. You respond aggressive, which is the worst thing you could possibly do in a fight, unless you want to fight. The best thing to do is to try to make peace. Now look what Moshe Rabbeinu does in Pasuk, 4 lines from the bottom. Vayishlach Moshe likro leDasan va'Aviram b'nei Eliyav. Moshe summons Dasan and Aviram. Now he's trying to honor them. Here I am, Moshe Rabbeinu is the leader of the Jewish people. I'm giving you a personal summons. I'm asking you to come to see me. 4 lines from the bottom on page 822. Vayomru lo na'ale. They said, no, we're not coming up to you. Which is a minor prophecy, because they said, no, we're not coming up. And what ends up happening to them? They go down, right? They go down, right? So there's a concept of sometimes your own mouth, it becomes your mouth becomes your downfall. They said, we're not coming up. Now, Moshe, what does it take? These are the guys who are been rabble-rousers from day one. They started up with Moshe 80 years ago in Egypt, where they were fighting with each other, and Dasan and Aviram. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, hey, why are you hitting your Russia? Why are you hitting your fellow? And they said they snitched on him to Paro. That's why he had to run away to Midian. And they've been on him the entire time. And Moshe Rabbeinu still tries to broker some sort of ceasefire. He still tries to make peace with them. And what's their response? A chutzpah. Hama'at, is it not enough? Ki ha'elisanu me'eretz zavas cholav udvash. You took us out of the land of milk and honey. You took us out of, just a wonderful place, Egypt, where you're there for 210 years getting whipped. You took us out of a land of milk and honey. La misenu ba'midbar, to kill us in the desert. Ki sistarer aleinu gam yisrael, where you're going to lord yourself over us also. Now, first of all, it's interesting that they invoke this land of milk and honey, right? Why are they bringing that up? Because this already came up. This expression came up by the spies, and the spies came back and they said, "Yeah, it's a land. Eretz Yisrael is the land of milk." So the people, they remember, there's always this reference back to the spies because that's what got the people in a bad mood to begin with. So Dasan and Aviram managed to somehow sneak in the word, you took us out of wonderful. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to Egypt, modern day Egypt. I hope not. I hope you have no plans to go. But modern day Egypt is not a land of milk and honey. I don't know if you've ever been there. Sometimes in Egypt, buildings collapse just because. Just once in a while, a building, that had nothing to do with missiles. Just a building once in a while, up, boom, building collapse. No, not a whole lot of building zoning regulations there. You ever see pictures of traffic in Egypt? Yeah, it's basically looks like a kid playing with Matchbox cars. There are no traffic laws. You just go weaving in and out, that sort of thing. If you get stopped by a cop, you bribe them. So they have the chutzpah to say that you took us out of a land of milk and honey, and then they say ki sistarer. Now look at that word sistarer very, very carefully, gentlemen. Sistarer, which means, how does the answer translate? You lorded over us? How does he translate it? You dominated us. Interestingly enough, the word in Hebrew for tistarer, you dominated us, if you look in the entire Torah, you know what gematria is, right? The gematria, numerical value of the letters. This word, tistarer, great Scrabble word, is a tough, a shin, a tough, a resh, and a resh. It's the word in the Torah with the highest letter value. The word tistarer, which not coincidentally means to lord yourself over us. So the word tistarer means that you're the what do you call it? It's got the highest value. How much is it? It's 800. A tough is 400. Shin is 300. Another tough is 400, which is 1100. and each resh is 200. So it's 1,500. The word tistarer is 1,500. It's the letter in the Torah with the highest value. You'll have to take my word for it because you're not going to go look and counting all the words now. So if you can't trust me, you got to, I don't blame you. Then they continue. Af lo el eretz zavas chalav udvash v'yasanu. You didn't bring us to a land of milk and honey, another milk and honey land. Vatita lonu nachla soda v'kerem. Ha'enei anoshim ahem tenaker. What, you're going to poke our eyes out? You're going to blind us? Lo na'aleh. Now, I was saying, hey, listen, we know what you're trying to do here. We know what you're trying to do. What does the Mishnah say? What does the Torah say when you bribe somebody? What happens to them? What does the Torah say? Kiach shochad, bribery, ye'aver. It blinds the wise. When you blind somebody, you blind somebody. But when you bribe somebody, what have you done? It stops him from seeing the truth because now he's got some sort of a personal bias in a certain direction. And it's a pasuk in the Torah that says, Ki hashochad ya'aver, bribery blinds people. What they're implying to Moshe Rabbeinu is, we know what you want to do. You want to call us up. You're calling us up, me and him together, the two of us, because you're going to try to bribe us with some position. Hey, are you going to poke out our eyes? You're going to try to blind us with a bribe now? That's what they're implying. At that point, Moshe Rabbeinu's had enough. Vayichar l'Moshe ma'od. Moshe gets very upset. Vayomer el Hashem, el teifen el minchasam, do not turn to their offering. Lo chamor eched mehem nasasi, v'lo hariosi esachad mehem. Do not turn to their offering. When they bring the ketoris, do not accept their offering. Now, what this tells you is that Moshe Rabbeinu, if he's got a daven to Hashem, remember, there's going to be the showdown tomorrow with the ketoris offering. Whose ketoris is Hashem going to accept? And Moshe Rabbeinu says, please, Hashem, don't accept their offering. Which tells you that Moshe Rabbeinu was worried that maybe Hashem would accept their offering. Which tells you that if Moshe Rabbeinu was worried about them, these are people on a very high level. So what went wrong? How did they end up like this? How could they possibly have gotten to this point, number one? And number two, there's a bigger question here. Moshe Rabbeinu says, hey, I didn't take one donkey, and I didn't do anything bad to any of them. I'm a good person. You ever hear people say, I'm a good person, I never hurt nobody? Yeah, they used to have these interviews on the news. They're talking to some guys, I'm a good person, I never hurt anybody. That's a standard. You're good if you didn't slam a door on anybody's fingers. That makes you a good person. I could have slammed a door on your fingers, and I didn't. I could have hit you, and I didn't. I'm a good person. There are higher levels of being a good person, obviously. Now, the problem here is like this. These are smart people. So Rav Hai Gaon was one of the Gaonim from the period of the Gaonim. He says there was once a lion, and the lion saw a fox. The lion wanted to eat the fox. The lion was hungry. And so the lion wanted to eat the fox. So the fox said to the lion, listen, I got a better idea. See that guy over there? He points, there's a human being, a nice, plump, corpulent human being. He says, that guy's got a lot more meat on him than me. And I think you ought to go eat him. So the lion says to the fox, and what the lion doesn't know is right in front of this human being where he's sitting on his porch, there's like this covered pit, booby-trapped. The lion says to the fox, yeah, well, I don't want to start up with him because I'm worried about his prayers. I'm worried his prayers will get me. So the fox says, you don't have to worry about it. If anything, they'll get your grandchildren. They won't have an effect on you. The lion says, you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. He says, okay. So the lion starts bounding over to eat this human being. And as he gets over there, he steps on the booby-trap pit and he falls into the pit. Yeah, and then he calls up to the fox. He says, I thought you said his prayers weren't going to get me. He said, they didn't. He said, you said they get my grandchildren. He said, yeah, they didn't get you. But his prayers about your grandfather, you're the grandson, that's what got you. So Rav Dessler asked, I understand, why didn't the lion realize that earlier? Why didn't the lion realize that originally? He said, listen, if his prayers could get my grandchildren, maybe there were earlier prayers about my grandfather and I'm the grandchild. Why didn't he realize that? So Dessler says, you see that you could be a very, very smart person. We started speaking about this yesterday. You could be very intelligent. But when you are caught up in a fit of some sort of desire, whether it's a physical desire, a desire of honor, jealousy, whatever it is, intelligence is blinded. All of a sudden you don't realize that think about this before you do this, because you may end up in trouble over here. I had a guy here once in the yeshiva who told me that he waited outside a doctor's office because he had to get results of an AIDS test. He said it was a bad 15 minutes. It was a bad 15 minutes. And then it turned out it was okay. He turned out he was okay. But he said it was a pretty bad 15 minutes waiting. What happened beforehand? Why weren't you thinking about that in advance? Because in advance you say, nah, it'll be okay. Nothing's going to happen. Why? Because you're caught up in the fit of desire. When you're caught up in the fit of desire, rational thought is blinded. I mean, even now, there are people who are traveling through Egypt to go home. I wouldn't call it a fit of desire, but I would call it an abandoning of rational thought. To go through Egypt right now is not a good idea, considering it's on level 4. The Israeli Defense Establishment has put it on a level 4 security alert. If my kid told me that he was going through Egypt, I would grab him, chain him up in a dungeon, deprive him of food and drink until he gave me his ticket. I wouldn't let my kid go through Egypt. I wouldn't go through Egypt. I wouldn't let anybody else go through Egypt. If I could stop somebody. So sometimes life, yeah, but I got to get my cousin's getting married. I got to get back to America. My brother's getting. I don't care who's getting married. They'd rather have a wedding celebration than a catastrophe. So why when a person stops the rational, where did the rational thought go? Number one. Number two, there's a bigger question here, and that is that Moshe. Look what Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem. Read that pasuk again. He says, "Listen, don't turn to their offering." Because I have, and that, by the way, that's what happened to Korach and Dovid and Aviram. These are high-level people who are absolutely blinded by their desire for prestige, honor, and prestige, and they're not thinking rationally. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu wants to emphasize to Hashem, listen, don't take their offering because I have a certain merit. I'm good too. What's my merit? Number one, I never took advantage of my position. I never took a donkey. Never took a donkey for. I never even said, "Hey, but you're in a position of authority, so you can start taking things." I never took a donkey, and never did anything bad to anybody. Now, I want to ask you a question: if you're Moshe Rabbeinu and you're trying to invoke merit with God, what would you say about yourself? I performed 10 plagues in Egypt at great personal risk. I went into Paro at great personal risk. I went up to Har Sinai for 40 days. I didn't eat and drink at great personal discomfort. A lot of merits that Moshe Rabbeinu had. Why is Moshe Rabbeinu invoking this? You want to know what my merit is? My merit is that I never took a donkey from them. If I was Moshe Rabbeinu, I would start talking about much more dramatic and life and earth-shattering events. Yeah.
Maybe it's to contrast him as a person with them, like they seem to be into this whole leadership position so that they can get something from it, while he's saying that.
Good. He'd say maybe it's the contrast. Moshe Rabbeinu is showing that I never took a donkey. These guys are looking for honor and prestige. Could be. So there's a very important. This is extremely important to understand who we are. Who are we as people? I think it's a question that we're always asking. It's a question I think every stage of life people say, who am I really? Sometimes we want to know, who am I really? Am I like the frum guy who just went to the Gemara shir and I'm feeling frum and I'm feeling really religious and really devoted? Or am I the guy who that same night went to a bar and did less religious things? So who am I really? Am I the guy where, am I really at the level where I'm putting on a black hat? Or am I the guy who, goes with my friends on to a barbecue in our loincloths? Who am I really? And it's a question we ask ourselves at every stage. By the way, you don't have to define it. There's nowhere that it says I have to define who I am. Am I super Haredi? Am I moderately Haredi? It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah you got to give yourself a label. Can you believe that? Yeah, because there's like the guy who wears the big black yarmulke, I'm super frum. Then there's the guy who wears the leather yarmulke, I'm frum but cool. And then there's a guy who wears, and I belong to this group. It doesn't say anywhere that you have to do that. All that you have to do is at each moment of life make the correct choice. That's who we are. Doesn't matter who you are. You can be the biggest rabbi with a long white beard and only speak Aramaic. You still got to make the right choices all the time. And if you make the wrong choice, then you're accountable. So it doesn't say anywhere, and it's something that people grapple with all the time. Who am I really? And sometimes we even scare ourselves. Is it true? Sometimes I'm so frightened because I'm really feeling devoted. Like, whoa, let's put on the brakes over here. I am just not that frum. So we put on the brakes. A person has to know that you don't have to put on the brakes. And you, at every level, a person just has to do the right thing. That's what we have to do. You have to make the right choices all the time. Number one. Number two, listen carefully. There's a Gemara, I think we spoke about this once a while ago. The Gemara says like this. Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, if you remember Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, he's one of the 10 martyrs who ends up getting a Sefer Torah wrapped around him, and they burn him. The Romans burn him in a Sefer Torah. We read about him on Yom Kippur, we read about him on Tisha B'Av. Okay. So Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon once met Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma was the Gadol Ador. And Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma said to Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, you know, the Romans have made a decree not to study Torah, and I heard about you, that you have gathered groups of people and you're teaching Torah in public in blatant, open defiance of the Romans. So Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina said, yes, I am. Yeah, Hashem will have mercy. So Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma said, boy, I'd be surprised if they don't get you and they wrap you in a Sefer Torah and burn you. Because, you know, you're defying the Romans. The Romans weren't very tolerant. So Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon said to Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, tell me what my portion is in the world to come. What's my station in the world to come? So Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma said to him, well, give me an example of something you did. Give me an example of your behavior. So it says, one Purim, I had set aside money for my Purim meal. You know, you have to have a big bash on Purim. You have a Purim Suda. And I set aside money for my Purim Suda, and I took that money, it got all mixed up, say it was $50, got mixed up, and I ended up giving it away to tzedakah. So I had to take another $50 to make a meal, and I didn't reimburse myself from tzedakah. I just said, all right, you know, I gave an extra $50. There you go. So when Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma heard that, he said, well, if that's what you did, may my portion be like your portion in the world to come. That's what the Gemara says. Now, the very big question here. If you were Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, and Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma would say to you, give me an example of something you did. You know what I would say if I was Rabbi Chanina? I would say, I rounded up people and taught Torah at great personal risk and opened defiance of the Rome. That's what I did. And why are you, listen, give away an extra $50 is great, but compared to being Moser Nefesh for Torah, to be at self-sacrificing for Torah, I would say that, that trumps $50. So why did he use that as an example? So here's the rule, gentlemen. The rule is who you are, meaning who we are in our station for eternity, is not defined by individual dramatic acts. Let's say you saved somebody's life, you dove into the river and saved somebody's life. Gewaldig mitzvah. You saved somebody, that's not who you are. That was a one-off. You get rewarded for that. But that doesn't define who you are as a person. We are defined by the little things that we do. We are defined by not pushing when getting on a bus. And we're defined by going shopping for our wife with a smile when she wants us to go shopping. And we are defined by calling our parents when they want to be called and not, just ignoring them. That defines us. The little things we do is who we are as a person. The things we do, did I put on tefillin today? Did I daven today? The little things we do is what defines who we really are as people. How consistent we are with the little things. The big things come up once in a while. There's a big thing that comes up. Okay, that's great. You got to do the big things and you get rewarded for it. We get eternal reward for it. But the definition of, so what's Moshe Rabbeinu saying? Sure, I brought down the Torah. Sure, I split the sea. Sure, I did the 10 plagues. But you know who I am as a person? I'm the person who never bothered I never took a donkey from anybody. I never hurt anybody, and so on. Okay. So now they come to the showdown. So Korach gathers his people. And then Moshe Rabbeinu, now watch this. Now you got to put yourself in Korach's position. By the way, the word Korach is the same Hebrew words as Kereach. Anybody know what Kereach means? No. What? That's Reach. This is Kereach. Bald. Korach is bald. There's a Gemara that says there was a man who was married to 2 women. One was old and one was young. So the younger woman plucked out all of his gray hairs. The older woman plucked out all of his black hairs. The Gemara says between the two of them, he ended up bald. Yeah, he was Kereach Mikano Mikan. He was Kereach Mikano Mikan. The word Korach means Kereach. He had a lot, wanted more, and ended up with nothing. That's Korach is Kereach. It also, the same letters is you notice that Moshe Rabbeinu says to Korach in Pasuk, go back for 1 second. Go back for 1 second. Where is it? 1 second. Where do you see it inside? Where is it? I can't find it. Where does he say? Okay, I'll show you later. Okay, we'll come across that. I don't want to spend. I want to go on. I want to look for it. Where did Moshe Rabbeinu said it to Korach right away? Oh, okay, there it is. Take a look at on page 820, the last pasuk on 820. Vaydaber el Korach. Bottom line 820. Vaydaber el Korach v'elchol adoso lemor. He says to Korach, Boker, in the morning, v'yoda Hashem es asher lo ve'es hakodosh v'hi kri v'elav. Hashem will draw near that one who's the truly holy one. Ve'es asher yivchar bo yakri v'elav. The one who he chooses, he will draw near. The letters of Korach, if you rearrange them, what do you get? Rachok, which means what? Far. Korach is far. Moshe Rabbeinu says Hashem will draw near. What is Korach? Korach is Rachok. It's not going to work, Korach. Now he tells him he's had about enough. On page 824. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe lebor, el Moshe v'Aaron lemor. He bodlu mitoch ha'eda hazos. Separate yourself from this congregation. V'achala osam kiraga. I'll destroy the whole bunch of them. And then Moshe Rabbeinu gets involved. Skip down one more line. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe lemor. Daber al ha'eda lemor. Say to the people, hey, olu misaviv lemishkan Korach dasav. Get away from any of the proximity of Korach and dasav aviram. Vayaka Moshe vayelech al dasav aviram. This time Moshe Rabbeinu actually goes to them. Vayelchu acharav ziknei Yisrael, the elders of the Jewish people. Now he's going to them. The other honor didn't work when I invited you to me. I'll even honor you by coming to you. Vayadaber el ha'eda lemor. Moshe now says to the people, Suruna me'al ha'nashim ha'rashoim ha'elu. Get away from the tents of these wicked people. Ve'altigu b'chol Hashem. Don't touch anything they have. Pentisafu b'chol chatosam. Lest you get drawn in and you're collected. You whether you go with all their how does he translate tisafu? You perish because of their sins. Now listen carefully. You're Korach and Dasan Va'aviran right now. Now you know the truth. And Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, listen, everybody, if you go near them, you're going to perish. What would you do at this point? What would you do at this point? At this point, I'd say, oh, this is getting serious now. I know the truth. I know that this man has split the sea, and everything he has ever said that's going to happen has happened. At that point, even if nothing is right, you play the game to a certain point. It's like playing chicken. Right? You ever play chicken? I hope not. With cards. You ever play chicken? No, you didn't. You never played chicken. No, you did not. Right? But there is a game called chicken. You only play it to a certain point. If you ever played chicken with me, I guarantee you would win. Right? I'd be off the street so fast. I wouldn't even be in the card to begin with. So, at a certain point, you're talking tough. At a certain point, you better back down. This is like Iran right now. Hey fellas, you're really pushing the envelope over here. You don't want to get, it's one thing, the little Israelis. You don't want to get Trump upset. Now I don't know exactly how much you're going to do this, but at a certain point, the man, he does it. He's very unpredictable over here. He's got a short fuse. I wouldn't do this if I were you fellas. Okay, so what does do? Everybody moves away. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu then makes it. If you don't believe that Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm amused every time I see this. Vayomer Moshe, second line from the top. Bizos teidun ki Hashem shlachani. In this, you are going to see that Hashem has sent me. Lasos as kol amasi be'elokim lo omli bibi. I did not make any of this up, and I'm giving you a shot. I'm going to prove it to you. Im kemos kol ha'adam yamusu elu. If these guys die a natural death, they just all drop dead of heart attacks right now on the spot. Ufkudas kol adam yipaked alei, and they die a regular Lo Hashem shlachani. Then you're right. Hashem didn't send me. My bad. If they drop that on the spot, then you're right. Hashem didn't send me. V'imbriya yivra Hashem. But if Hashem creates a new being, upotasa adama espia, the earth opens its mouth, ubola osam, and it swallows them. V'etz kol asher lahem, v'yordu chaim she'ola. I mean, it's pretty graphic over here. Listen, if they drop dead of natural causes, then you're right. Hashem didn't send me. You're right. And if the earth opens up its mouth and it swallows them alive and they go down into the depths, vidatem ki niyotzu anoshim be'elos. Then you know that Hashem is provoked. They have provoked Hashem. They've antagonized Hashem. Now, I would tell you, now, if you're Korach, what did you just hear is the two possible choices? You die or you die. Right? This is what they call a poor man's choice. You know, sometimes in life there's a rich man's choice, and this is not a good option. Option one, death. Option two, very death. Right? If I was Korach at this point, I'd say, you know what? Can we talk? can we think about this for a second here? So the question becomes, and there's an interesting Chassam Sofer. He says, you know what Moshe Rabbeinu is really saying? I understand. If Moshe Rabbeinu is wrong, why should they die? If Moshe is wrong, Moshe is saying, listen, if they die a natural death, then you're right. The whole thing's a fair. I made the whole thing up. I understand if he really made the whole thing up, why should they die? Why should they die? What's the answer? The answer is that they're guilty already of death. They deserve death already. Even if Moshe is wrong. For what? Why did you start trouble with the rabbi? It's like the guy in the shul who gets everybody riled up against the rabbi. You got a problem. You have an issue with the rabbi? You have an issue with the Rav? Why don't you go talk to him? What do you got to start a rebellion for? For starting a rebellion and challenging his authority, you're already guilty. Now, if you're wrong for the rebellion, then you're really in dread. Then you're really going to have some trouble, like you can't believe. So what happens? He finished speaking, got the words out of his mouth. The earth underneath them split. The Medrash says they started running and the earth followed them around. The crack followed them around, just like in the cartoons. The earth is following. Yeah! The earth is coming after them. But second, gets worse. The earth opened its mouth. Vativla osam, it swallowed them. Ve'es botehem, in their houses. Ve'es kol ha'adam asher lekorach, all of his people. Ve'es kol ha'rechush, and all the property. Vayerdu heim ve'chol asher lehem chayim. They went down alive into the depths. Vatechas aleim earth, the earth closed back. Vayovdu mitoch hakol. This wasn't a regular earthquake. A regular earthquake is the earth splits. Anyway, what's the thing called a fault? The crack stays open. Here, the earth opened up, a mouth developed in the earth, which the Medrash says, an actual mouth. It wasn't just that they fell into the earth. There was a mouth, and the mouth gulped them, and there was a gulping sound. Doesn't 7-Eleven have the big gulp? Isn't that one of the drinks? 7-Eleven, the big gulp? They're all, and there was actually a sound that came out of the earth. The earth split, and they were actually swallowed. I guess the earth made a bracha, borei pri ha'adam, and they were swallowed down into the earth. They swallowed up, and it cracked. Then it closed up, and there was all his house, his people, his property. Not even a needle of Korach remained. Not even a needle remained, and there is no evidence whatsoever that a man named Korach ever existed. There's no evidence whatsoever that there was ever a human being named Korach. But he himself at his property, there was no evidence at this point that there was ever a man, not one thing that he owned remained behind. I try to keep this in mind if I'm ever a guest at somebody's house or I leave a room where I've been a guest. I just think of this concept. There should be no evidence whatsoever that I was ever in this room. That applies to being a guest and leaving a guest room. It applies to leaving a bathroom. That there should be no evidence whatsoever that I was ever in this room. That the person should know, don't leave any telltale signs behind, whatever the telltale signs may be. Don't leave them behind. Al derech eretz. That should be prepared for the next guy. The room should be clean. The bed should be made. Whatever it is. There's no sign whatsoever. Now, why not? Why is this? First of all, why is this the punishment? Why is the punishment they get swallowed up by a mouth? So my son told me years ago that, well, and then I saw the commentary say, well, what did Korach do? He opened his mouth. Korach opens a big mouth. So if you're a big mouth, you got mida keneged mida. God works, you get what you deserve. You open your mouth in the wrong place, you got swallowed by a mouth, number one. Number two, there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says you should daven for the welfare of the government. Always daven that there should be a central government that has some sort of control, that has authority. Why? Says the Mishnah, she'ilmole mora'a, if not for the fear of the government, ish esrei eyu chayim below, people would swallow each other up alive. That's what the wording of the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos is. People would swallow each other up alive. What did Korach want over here? What did Korach really want? And what that means is you see what happens as soon as there's a blackout, or as soon as there's no authority. Go down to what's it called, Venezuela. If there's lawlessness, what happens? People swallow each other up alive. Symbolically, that's the expression used in Pirkei Avos. Okay, what did Korach want? Korach wanted that there should be no central authority. We're all good. We'll be a complete communism at its best or worst. No central, nobody should be in charge. What happens if nobody's really in charge? What if you don't have that one authority figure, or you have a government that's in charge? What happens? People swallow each other up alive. Korach, that's what you wanted. Okay, so now you know what it's like to be swallowed. You deserve, because that's what it would. If it would have been done your way, Korach, then people would be swallowing each other up alive. Therefore, you get swallowed up alive. Number two. Number three, and this is also very, very important. Rav Dessler says this. Korach is suffering from jealousy, which is probably the most difficult character trait to overcome is jealousy. To overcome desire, a little willpower. To overcome the desire for honor, even honor a person, you get a little honor, and a person realizes how fleeting and it's really an illusion. There's really nothing there. On the other hand, there's jealousy, and jealousy when there's a pasuk that says "Rekav atzmos kina." Jealousy causes the bones to rot. When you're jealous of somebody, you actually feel a physical pain. You're like, it gets you right in the kishkis. Right? You can actually feel it. You feel the jealousy. Jealousy is a lifetime battle. And jealousy requires an understanding that, A, what this person has does not affect me at all. Sometimes the people are jealous because they think, well, if this guy got it, that means I lost out on it. You're not going to lose out on something. Even if you wanted a position in the office and somebody else got the position, you wouldn't have gotten it anyway. It's not like he's taking something away from you. And a person has to believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, jealousy, what jealousy really translates to is, if you're jealous, that means you're angry at God. You know that? If you're jealous of somebody else, you're angry at God. You know what your anger is? I don't like the way God is dealing the cards here. That's what jealousy really is. I'm not happy with the way God is dealing the cards here. Number two. Number three, jealousy is absolutely unreasonable. Michael Jordan once said, people would like to be Michael Jordan for a day. People wonder, why? I'd like to be Michael Jordan for ever think about that? I'd like to be Michael. I wonder what it'd be like to be Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan once said, yeah, but it's not Michael Jordan for a day. It's Michael Jordan all the time. So you can't go anywhere because people are hounding you and you have no privacy. And okay, now, I told you, I don't feel sorry for Michael Jordan. But there is some truth to what he's saying. Because when you're jealous of, wow, this guy got a brand new Lamborghini. Boy, am I jealous. Yeah, are you also jealous about who his father-in-law is? Are you jealous about the fact that he's got that he's got this issue in life and that issue in life? That you're not jealous of. You can't be jealous of one. Can't pick one item. You want the whole package? You sure you want his package? I don't want his package. So let him have his package with the Lamborghini, if that's what it goes with. So jealousy is irrational. But having said that, it's the most difficult trait to overcome, because at the end of the day, we are jealous. And when you're jealous of somebody else, what happens is, and this is what we spoke yesterday about Haman, what were the words? You remember what Haman said when he was upset that Mordechai is not bowing down? What were the words of the Megillah? Do you remember what the words were? Do you remember what the word? Right. Yes, exactly. Very good, Nachshon. Kol ze eino shel. He comes home, he says, listen, I got money, and I got children, and I got power, and I got honor, I've got that. And then he says, the kol ze eino shoveli. None of this is worth anything to me, as long as that lousy Jew Mordechai doesn't bow down to me. That means that jealousy means, is a sense, I'm looking at you, and I don't exist. I have nothing. I have no existence. You have it, and I don't, and therefore there's a sense I don't exist. So God says to Korach, you feel you don't exist. I'll show you what it is now. The proverbial father. You want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about. You ever hear that music from your dad? You want to kvetch? I'll give you something to kvetch about. Oh, so God says, you don't exist? I'll show you what it is to not exist. Kaboom, gulp, right? And Korach goes down. And nothing remains, not even a needle. Now, why does the Medrash emphasize not even a needle of Korach remains? Why not? So let me ask you a question, gentlemen. You give tzedakah. What happens if you lose some money out of your wallet? You dropped a $5 bill. If you do, by the way, drop it near me. But a $5 bill falls out of your wallet, and then a poor man happens to come by and find it. Do you get merit? Do you get credited with tzedakah for that? Hey, be optimistic, guys. Be optimistic. Yes, you do. If a poor man finds your money, even though that was not your intention, then you actually get credited for a mitzvah. Do you know that there's one mitzvah in the Torah that could only be done unintentionally? There's one mitzvah in the Torah that could only be done unintentionally, which is what? What's that mitzvah? No, it's tzedakah you do intentionally. There's one mitzvah that can only be done that if you're intentional at all, then you don't get that mitzvah. It's when you're in the laws, in the field, you have to leave various forms of crops, pay leket, you have to leave certain things in the field. So one of the things that you have to leave in the field is called shikha. Not shiksa, shikha, right? You have to leave the shiksa alone too, but you have to leave, it's called shikha. That means if there's a bundle of wheat when you're harvesting your field and you walk past it, you forgot to collect it while you're in the collection process, you're not allowed to go back and take it. You have to leave that for the poor people. But you can't pretend to forget it. If you pretend to forget it, then it's just tzedakah. To be actual shikha has to be that you genuinely forgot it. That means it was unintentional. Yet you get credited for a mitzvah. You drop $5 on the street and a poor man finds it, you get credited for a mitzvah. Korach does not even deserve the merit. What if he drops a needle and a tzaddik comes along, finds the needle, and uses it to to stitch up his clothing? He ripped his shirt, he stitches it up, then Korach would have a merit. So that he shouldn't even have any merit whatsoever, nothing of his possession remains. There will be no further merit for Korach. One last point, and this is remarkable. The irony is unbelievable. What did Korach want? He wants to become the Kohen Gadol, right? Why did Aaron become the Kohen Gadol? What was the merit that Aaron had, if you remember, that he became the Kohen Gadol? Because when Moshe Rabbeinu got the appointment to be the leader of the Jewish people, Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, no, don't appoint me. I have an older brother. I don't want to do that to him. He's going to be jealous. And what did God say to Moshe Rabbeinu? He's not going to be jealous. V'racha v'samach b'lu. He'll see you and he's going to rejoice in his heart. He's not going to have any tinge of jealousy at all. And as a result of that, Aaron became the Kohen Gadol who wears the chest plate, the choshet, on his heart. Why? Because he wasn't jealous. What does Korach want? Wants to be Kohen Gadol. He's jealous. You just disqualified yourself. You understand the irony? The very reason you want to be the Kohen Gadol means you can't be the Kohen Gadol. Is that frustrating in life? Okay, I don't really want it. Can I have it? You want it? No, I don't want it. But why can't I have it? You want it. You're disqualified. The fact that you want it, that's one of the most frustrating things in the world. I have a cousin who was once a camp counselor. So he gave a kid a candy. He was a camp counselor, like little 5 or 6 year olds. So he gave one kid a candy. So another kid says, how come he gets and I don't get? He says, do you want, or you're upset because he got, or because you want one also? He says, no, I also want one. Are you upset that he got? No. He said, okay, so he gave him one, and he gave him a second one. Sar Bali Chaim. Absolute torture. Absolute torture. The kid's like, That's what disqualifies Korach. You're disqualified by the very fact you want it. You can't be the Kohen Gadol. One of the most frustrating things in the world. And then Korach, instead of enjoying everything he has, wisdom, power, honor, money, he's got everything, he ends up with absolutely nothing. That's the lesson. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.